YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and today we're ranking every single NFL defense from 32 to 1, worst to first. Did the same video yesterday for offenses. Based on the comments, you probably would think the video was actually ranking the teams who I hate the most down to the teams I like the most. Probably get a similar look in the comments for this video as well, but these are predictions for the 2020 season at the end of the day, and then we'll have my final season predictions coming up very soon. Fantasy videos start next week, and full coverage in season weekly picks with the Goat House boys. Favorite videos on the channel. I do score predictions, power rankings every single week, full coverage for the NFL season, so you're going to want to subscribe, turn notifications on. We got you covered. Follow that Twitter. Live tweet during pretty much every game throughout the year, so that's a must follow. We have an Instagram, podcast, and a Patreon with bonus content, and you can find out how to get into the Goat House Fantasy League through that. There's a link in the description in the comments for anything that you may need. But let's get on these defensive rankings. 32 to 1. What do we got here? Unfortunately, Panthers fans, I got you at 32, and I think a big reason they drafted all defensive players is because they know their defense needs some work. They know it's a work in progress. So there was a reason for that. There's a lot of young players in this group, and I don't think it's going to be a terrible defense. I don't know if there's any team that's terrible in general in the NFL. I think the secondary is pretty rough. Shaq Thompson's kind of got to carry the load there at the linebacker unit. Defensive line looks okay. It's just pretty young. Kawan Short's been inconsistent. Derek Brown, I think, will be a stud pretty early on. How will Brian Burns be going back to the 4-3? Yeah, Gross Matos, solid pick in the second round. Can't expect too much. It's just very young. And, what they showed us in the draft, that they drafted all defense, kind of says a lot, but it's good for the future. It's great for the future here. So I got the Panthers at 32. 31, I got the New York Giants. And love their defensive line. There's a lot to like about their defensive line. You got, Leonard Williams, who's kind of been off his game recently, but he's still a solid defensive end in that 3-4. Dexter Lawrence, I like a lot. Can play nose, can play D-tackle, dominant run stopper, can get after the quarterback. That's kind of the bonus to his game. Delvin Tomlinson, even have B.J. Hill as a rotation guy who's pretty solid. He would start on a lot of teams. Other than that, though, there are 3 defensive linemen and a rotation guy. Not much going. Marcus Golden, pretty productive last year. They add Blake Martinez. Secondary is pretty weak. Beal opting out, and then you have the whole DeAndre Baker situation. So they're very thin at corner. Bradbury's kind of got to carry that load. Safeties, it feels like they have 2 strong safeties with Jabril Peppers and Xavier McKinney. I don't like either one at free. They have Julian Love, who can play in a slot or play free. The secondary is pretty weak, and that usually you can get away with that. I don't really value corner too much anymore because I value edge rush a lot more. And if you have good edge rush, you'll make mediocre corners look good. Giants really are lacking in that edge rush department as well, so that's pretty tough for them. 30, I got the Bengals. Tough blow losing Trey Waynes for most of the season, if not the whole thing. That was a pretty good pickup. He's been a solid corner the last couple of years. He started his career off a little slow, but been really picking it up. Key thing here is the Bengals were pretty terrible in tackling when the ball got to the next level, to the secondary. Trey Wayne's one of the better tackling corners in football, so that was pretty tough blow. They are weak at the corner position. Safety group I like. Jesse Bates, Von Bell. I like this group a lot. Jesse Bates, he was going to benefit for having an upgrade at the corner position with Trey Waynes. He was going to get he'll still make those plays. He'll still get his hands on the ball a little bit. Defensive line looks pretty solid. I'm not worried about the D-line. The linebacker unit, some young guys that could end up being studs. It's just a young group that they're going to give up some yards to the air, and when that ball gets to past the D-line, there's some tackling concerns. But they are heading in the right direction, the Bengals defense. 29, I got the Falcons. They have some studs, adding Dante Fowler. The question is, will he be okay in the Falcons defense? He was pretty underwhelming in the Jaguars 4-3, goes to the Rams 3-4 defense. He's pretty dominant at times, honestly, playing with Aaron Donald, but now he's playing with Grady Jarrett, not too far off. A little bit of a different scheme. It almost feels like the Falcons pass rush, no matter who they get in there, they've struggled. So that's why I'm a little worried about, but Fowler will be solid. Grady Jarrett dominant. Deion Jones pretty solid linebacker. Keanu Neal, if healthy, a very solid safety. Young corner duo, a lot of young pieces here and there. Besides Deion Jones, they're pretty weak at the linebacker unit, so they're kind of all over the place. We know what to expect from the Falcons defense, but first they got to stay healthy. 28 is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like their pass rush duo led by Josh Allen, but they add Clavon Chason to that group there. You can't expect too much from him right away, but he's a first-round pick for a reason. He's very solid. Bright future. Linebacker unit, I think, gets better, which they definitely needed with Joe Schobert. That helps. I worry about the secondary. One of the worst in football, I think, this year, and I worry about, C.J. Henderson could be a pretty good pick, but that was one of those guys that was that high of a pick because how much upside they have. Maybe you can't expect too much right away from C.J. Henderson. Either interior defense line, one of the worst in football, so they're kind of hit or miss all over the board here for their defense. And then you look at 27, the Jets, no Jamal Adams, no C.J. Mosley. This defense could have been way higher in this. I still view it as a pretty solid defense, even though it's down at 27. But, yeah, no Jamal Adams, kind of their captain there, their leader, and then C.J. Mosley's kind of that other type of captain and leader. That's pretty tough. They do have other guys that are good to replace C.J. Mosley. Nobody is C.J. Mosley, though. Quentin Williams, I think, will have a big year. I think where they're lacking at corner, but more importantly, they're lacking at the actual edge rush position. They're rumored to be in on Yannick Ngakoue. That could be big because edge rush is the most important thing for defense in today's NFL, and they're kind of lacking in that department, so that kind of weighs them down. 26 is going to be the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they have studs like Myles Garrett and Sheldon Richardson, Denzel Ward. These guys are kind of holding them up from being at the very bottom, honestly. The rest is kind of a work in progress. They'll eventually, in the near future, try to replace Olivier Vernon. He's declined big time, really. Okay player still. And you look at the linebacker unit, it's pretty messy. No Joe Schobert. Mac Wilson's already hurt. Not good there. It's a young linebacker unit that'll struggle. The secondary, they've added some pieces. I think Greedy Williams take that next step. Tackling's an issue. Grant Delpit, pretty good pick. Tackling is an issue. Another one of those teams where tackling overall was a major issue once the ball got by, Sheldon Richardson, Myles Garrett to that next level. So that's what I worry about, quite a bit here for the Browns. But they'll get pressure with those two guys I mentioned there, and Denzel Ward could end up being one of the better corners in football. 25 is the Dolphins. Great coaching, and I think the defensive front, pretty underrated. Kyle Van Noy is going to be very solid. He was a very good player last year, and it feels like he's getting better, and he's with Brian Flores, so familiar face there. Defensive line, the actual front, pretty solid. Christian Wilkins can take that next step. Secondary cornerback group, one of the best in football. Safety group, maybe on the lower end, of football here, but that corner, having that top tier corner group could weigh them up a bit. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting defense to watch. This Brian Flores defense starting to come together for sure. They come in at number 25. 24 is gonna be the Colts. I've talked about it before. The Colts defense kind of all over the place. You have Darius Leonard, a potential star player, a dominant all-around player that can impact the game in any way. You add DeForest Buckner. I think those two guys kind of carry the group a lot. Justin Houston's still solid, obviously not getting better, but he'll get the pressure on one side. A lot of young players here and there, you kind of got to rely on. Can Kamoko Toure, he was hurt last year, but can he take that next step? I like Malik Hooker in the passing game. Can he stay healthy? The corner group's a little messy. They need some guys to take the next step. Kenny Moore, I like. Is he going to start at slot outside? Probably slot. Rock Ya-Sin, Xavier Rhodes on the outside. What Xavier Rhodes are we going to get? Can't expect too much. They're going to give up a lot of yards to the air, and the only way that they can benefit that secondary is if the pass rush is ridiculous, and I just don't think it's ridiculous. They get better with Buckner, but you can't expect the guy to be in on every single play. He's more of just a D tackle. He's going to stop the run first, but he can get after the quarterback. This is one of those defenses. There's going to be weeks where they look absolutely dominant, mainly because those studs that they have. But then there's weeks where they're going to give up a ton of yards. So, yeah, kind of all over the place. Some young, talented guys that they need to take that next step. 23 is going to be the Lions. They gave up a lot of yards through the air last year. Seen Darius Slay in and out of games. And other than that, they're kind of on the weaker side. But now they're more balanced back there. A guy like Tracy Walker at safety can take that next step, but they're more balanced at corner mainly. with Okudah and Trufant. So that actually could be an upgrade there. Linebacker unit, they don't have any standout guys really besides Jamie Collins, who kind of can be involved in the pass rush game. But they got a long list of guys that actually can play, so we'll see what route they go there. Defensive line, I don't know what they expect. You always expect more from you're always left wanting more from the Lions defensive line. So I'm not going to get too hyped this year. Trey Flowers better step up this year. I think he will. They got the Okwara brothers, Deshaun Hand. We can see more of him, more of what we saw the rookie year. So it's a mysterious defense. What are we going to get? It's pretty balanced, I'd say. I don't know if there's really a standout guy, like a star player out there, but they're pretty balanced. And Patricia was known as a pretty good defensive coach. He's on thin ice. This is it for him. So we'll see. 22, the Raiders, pretty similar to the Lions. I think balanced across the board. They don't really have any holes. But do they have any star players that are gonna take over? They got guys that could take over here and there. They're stud players. Max Crosby last year. They add Corey Littleton. I think they're pretty balanced across the board. There's no spots that there's like holes. The pass rush could be pretty sneaky good. If Cleveland Farrell takes that where we thought he would be. He's supposed to be a lot better than Max Crosby, and he still can be. So he can take that next step. I don't know if there's anybody that's going to absolutely take over the game here, similar to the Lions, just pretty balanced across the board. The difference, maybe the Raiders get a little more pass rush than the Lions, but it's going to be interesting. The Lions may get it in different ways, unique ways with Jamie Collins. 21 is going to be the Rams. Tough one to rank. I like the secondary a lot. I think this could be one of the better we did the secondary rankings not too long ago. I think the Rams could be one of the better secondaries in football. I really like this group. Led by Jalen Ramsey, but watch out for Taylor Rapp. I'm very high on him for the future. But then you look at the rest of the defense, and you have maybe probably the best defensive player in football, Aaron Donald, within that group, really the front seven, but he really carries that group. It is a weak group of front seven there. Terrell Lewis, I love that pick. The key is to stay healthy. That was a first-round talent, but he could not. The question of him staying healthy because the piled-up injuries in the past, major ones. But he's very good. So if a guy like that could stay healthy, this pass rush could be pretty nasty, actually. But Brockers is solid. There's just a lot of holes. Losing Littleton, losing Fowler. There's a lot of holes across that. I don't know if they really have a true nose tackle that they can rely on. In the run game. So maybe relying on Aaron Donald too much, which he's that good. But, yeah, it's kind of all over the place, too. I love that secondary. 20 is going to be the Cardinals, and the Cardinals' defense got a lot better. They were towards the bottom, so now they're up at 20. Adding Isaiah Simmons, adding Kennard, a guy that could be sneaky good. Can't expect too much. The inside linebacker group looks good. D-line probably gets a little better. That's probably still their weak spot, though. Secondary looks pretty solid back there. I need guys like Murphy to take that next step, hopefully there. So linebacker unit looks really good. They're going to be unique with Isaiah Simmons. They're going to get some pressure because of Chandler Jones, of course, and some other guys. So they can be a solid defense here. And then we move on to 19. We got the Houston Texans. Key is staying healthy here with J.J. Watt mainly because J.J. Watt rushing from the line. You got Merciless rushing from a little off the ball there. It's a unique defense. And adding to you add Ross Blacklock, Charles Omenihu, that was one of the steals of the draft last year. They got him super late. He's going to get the pressure from the interior this year. So the defense, if healthy, the defensive front looks pretty good. McKinney, Cunningham, the linebacker, it looks really good there. It's just if one guy goes, see if Watt goes down, the whole scheme almost changes. So that's tough. Secondary. They got a long list of guys that actually could play. There's just no real standout guy. Justin Reed probably leading the way there. I think you can throw on this defense, but if they're getting that pressure with Watt and Merciless, they'll become better. So this could be a sneaky good defense here. It's just about staying healthy for sure. Looking forward to Omenihu and Blacklock. Those are guys that can get that pressure from the inside here. 18, the Patriots. See, the Patriots drop way down, arguably the best defense in football. It's due to losing Van Noy, Jamie Collins. A guy like Collins has been replaceable, though, because we've seen him on and off the Patriots. But losing both those guys, part of the linebacker unit that were hybrid players, key players of this defense, then losing Dante Hightower, a key piece in the middle, to opting out. That's pretty tough. You lose Danny Shelton, who I thought was a pretty good run stopper for them last year. They lose him in free agency. Patrick Chung opted out, which that's not a major one. It's a big name, but it's not as major as you think. But all these start to add up. Pass rush is going to be probably on the weaker side. Winovich going to need to step up, which he can, and they'll probably start Uche. They're very weak on the inside linebacker position. The actual defensive line is kind of just a solid run-stopping defensive line. So I worry about getting pressure. The secondary, they're a very good secondary, one of the best in football. It's going to be a tougher task this year because they might have to cover for longer. They still have those studs in the secondary, and they have Bill Belichick. That kind of brings them up because the rest of it on paper is pretty. It's kind of on the bad side, honestly. So they kind of get brought up to 18 because of Belichick and that secondary. 17 is going to be the Eagles. Which I think is a lot better than last year. It's tough because we know the run stopping ability is top tier, and I think it will be again. But the secondary killed them last year. The secondary really weighed them down, and it affected them in the passing game defensively, big time, which I thought really weighed them down. The Eagles' defense really wasn't a threat because of that. Secondary gets better, I think. Darius Slay is a big time addition. They've kind of suffered at the safety group. Darius Slay needs to stay on the field. We've seen him on and off the field with the Lions, so we'll see. It's an upgrade if he stays on the field. Linebacker unit's pretty weak. I love that defensive front, but another team that injury is just a concern. I want to put this team higher because I love the defensive front, but Barnett already hurt. Hargrave already hurt. Got nothing major guys that are expected to be ready to go. We've seen Malik Jackson come up with the injuries in the past, so that's what I worry about. I still think they'll give up yards to the air, not as much if Slay's on the field, of course. Mills apparently looking good at safety, so we'll see here. A lot rides on their front. Their actual front four that they have, so we'll see. They'll stop the run at a pretty high level again. 16 is going to be the Seahawks. Secondary got a big boost adding Jamal Adams, and Jamal Adams will do more than what involves the secondary. He'll come up in the box, make plays back there, so that definitely helped them. The edge rush is a concern, which might be the most important thing in football for defenses, so that kind of weighs them down. Interior looks good. Linebackers look okay there. Obviously, Bobby Wagner being one of the better, maybe the best linebacker in football. Another one that's kind of all over the place. Secondary will be really good. I just think edge rush is more important than secondary. How long will they have to cover for? That's kind of the question. But Adams is a pretty good pickup. I wish they still had Clowney. If they still had Clowney, this would be a huge boost, because it's exactly what they're lacking there. They'd be well inside the top 10. So edge rush, curious to see who actually starts out there. I'd like to see Darrell Taylor, actually, the second-round pick from Tennessee. I'd actually like to see him out there day one. So we'll see there. Maybe L.J. Collier can take that next step. So we'll see from the Seahawks there. 15, I got the Saints. The question here, they'll stop the run at a high level, because they have a very, very good linebacking core led by Demario Davis. They add Nigel Bradham. They will stop the run at a pretty high level because of that. Rankins is pretty solid in the interior if he's healthy. That's kind of the question. It's not a guy I'm predicting to get hurt. I don't really predict anybody to get hurt, but it's not a guy, and I think Saints fans can agree here, it's not a guy we can be overly confident on being healthy, so that's what I worry about. He's a very tough, very good talent. It's kind of Cam Jordan leading the way for the D-line then. Davenport needs to take that next step. He also needs to stay healthy. The second inconsistencies in the secondary is what concerns me. There's weeks where they look like a top-tier secondaries, and there's weeks where it's pretty bad. It seems like Latimer starts the first 5 or so weeks off looking like an elite corner, then I don't know what happens. I've never seen, night and day. Something ridiculous happens here. So I can't fully trust the secondary, and I can't trust the health. But overall, I think top 15, they're a solid defense. They'll stop the run first, which is great, but mainly about staying healthy. 14, I got the Cowboys. The secondary is kind of the same thing. Secondary is kind of the question here with the Cowboys. I love me some Trevon Diggs. That was a great draft pick. He was my number 2 corner in the class, so I actually like that. He'll be a playmaker back there. And what they needed was just more pass rush to help that out, and they got that. They had Everson Griffin, opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, so that's great. Affected by McCoy getting hurt, but honestly, it wasn't a guy I was confident getting through even a portion of the season, unfortunately. So I wasn't really expecting him too much anyways. Crawford, Guys like Poe could step up to be. That's kind of what they need, is just that run-stopping nose tackle there. They'll get pressure. They have one of the better linebacker units in football, and I think they have some playmakers in the secondary that actually, tackling in the secondary could be an issue a little bit. But guys like Diggs, Clinton Dix, get their hands on the ball. Hopefully their secondary their pass rush kind of can create that for their secondary. It's about staying healthy for them as well. Linebacker unit needs to stay healthy for sure. 13 is going to be the Vikings, so a bit of a drop-off for a defense that we expect top tier, and they've kind of been falling a little bit. I think 3 years ago, number 1, 2 years ago, maybe 3 range, last year, 5, 6 range. So they've dropped a little bit. I think they've lost some players on the defense, and that's the bad news because they lost quite a few. The good news is they didn't really lose any of their major impact players. They're studs out there. They lost some good players, but they're studs. But at the same time, that's a lot of change. It's a lot of change. And then losing Linval Joseph would have been okay if Michael Pierce was able to go this year. He opted out. So that's a tough blow. Their run defense will take a hit. They'll have a lack of interior pressure. So it's going to make things a lot harder for Daniel Hunter, who's maybe their star defensive player there. Linebacker unit, I'm not really worried about. Secondary, I'm starting to feel a little better about. It sounds like they almost got better in the secondary, but it's so young that they're going to have, at the corner position, I should say, they're so young that they'll have those bad moments. Safety group I like. Mike Zimmer, one of the best defensive coaches in football, so they'll still be solid. I just think they take a hit, and I think it's mainly because the lack of interior play. I think that really is major in today's NFL. So we see them fall outside the top 10 because of that, but I still view it as a good defense. They got some studs out there. 12 is going to be the Chiefs. Chiefs got a good defensive front there led by Chris Jones and Frank Clark. They'll get their pressure that way. Their linebacker unit, I think, balanced. It's not really great. It's not bad. Looking forward to see Willie Gay. I think it's a good fit for them from Mississippi State. They're the rookie. The secondary, they don't have Breeland for a few weeks there to start the season. That's kind of a tough blow because he's kind of key in their heavy man coverage there. Safety group looks good. Matthew and hopefully Juan Thornhill stays healthy. I expect him to. He was showing flashes down the stretch of the regular season. And this is the second year with Spagnuolo. This is the second year running the 4-3, and I think they gave up a lot of yards. If you go kind of going off statistics off the regular season, you're not really going to agree with them at 12 or around this range. But again, remember, that was their first year at Spagnuolo, first year of the 4-3. They've had injuries, and look at the playoffs. They really, really stepped up in the playoffs, so I expect them to continue to climb. They get good pressure. Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Derek Notty's good stopping the run, and they have other rotation on the other defensive end spot. Maybe a guy like Saunders on the interior can come in and get some pressure as well. So I like where this defense is heading for sure. Maybe corner can get a little better. But they were really good in the playoffs. I think it kind of goes unnoticed just because how good their offense was. So they come in at 12. 11 is going to be the Tennessee Titans. And if they add Clowney, this changes big time. They got Vrabel leading the way. Very good defensive mind there. They have a unique defense. I like the way they use the inside linebackers. The inside linebackers are very good, and they're getting better. Rashaan Evans, Jayon Brown, they're involved in every part of the game, containing, stopping the run on the inside, what middle linebackers usually do, but getting after the quarterback as well. Harold Landry getting better and better. Vic Beasley I would like in this Titans defense. I think he'd be highly productive. Failed his physical last I heard. I think he'll be on the field, but we don't know. If they add Clowney, that's kind of the one piece they're missing, is that another proven edge rusher to pair with Harold Landry. So if they add Clowney, it's a huge boost. Jeffrey Simmons is stud up front with Daquan Jones. Secondary very balanced, and they have a stud like Kevin Byard back there. I think it's about staying healthy at the cornerback position, but they did add Christian Fulton. So I don't know if there's really a hole. Again, if they can get another stud edge rusher, that would be huge. I don't know if there's a hole here. I think it's a unique defense. They're going to stop the run, and their playmakers can make some plays in the back end. So pretty balanced defense there at number 11. 10, I got the Packers, so the Packers taking another step here. I almost expected them to take a bigger step, but they didn't really go out and add too much to where they're hole, because they do have holes on the defense, even though it's a beastly defense and they got some studs out there. Adding more around Kenny Clark and adding more in the inside linebacker position, I think could have made them an elite defense. They are like so close, a couple pieces, to being an elite defense, which is crazy. That the Packers, came that far with their defense. They're always, it felt like an offensive team there for some time, but pass rush is great. The Smith brothers there, Kenny Clark at the nose tackle, one of the best I think the best nose tackle in football. And the secondary is very balanced, and something to remember is that a lot of those guys were kind of new to each other, a lot of new faces, and they were able to kind of click right away. So now more time kind of getting used to each other. And having an edge rush, which is the main factor, that puts them in the top 10. It seemed like a team like the Niners kind of exposed them. You can kind of run on them a bit, and I think that's due to the rest of the actual defensive line around Kenny Clark and the linebacker unit. But they're just really good with the pass rush, and they got some star players out there, and the secondary is very balanced. Maybe Savage could take that next step. We know what Amos is about. We know what Jair Alexander is about, and he's actually continuing to get better. Packers making it in the top 10 defense here. Number 9, the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, a much improved defense. You've seen them through the stretch of the season last year and how their young players are stepping up, and the veterans, getting Jason Pierre-Paul back the second half of the season, and he was really playing well. Top tier run stopping defense last year. I think the pass defense gets better. Young guys, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy Bunting, Carlton Davis getting better every single week. They add Antoine Winfield. They need a playmaker in the safety department. They got that. And they will get help because their front seven is very good. That linebacker unit and their 3-4, which is Shaq Barrett and JPP on the edge, and Devin White and Levante David, maybe the best inside linebacker duo in football. Those guys will create pressure, and they have all around to their game, and that'll help the secondary out a bit. Vita Vea and Dominican Sue will stop the run at a high level like they did last year. So the Bucs make their way into the top 10 this year, and we know they upgraded their offense, so pretty impressive. 8's going to be the Ravens. Top tier secondary, maybe the best in football. Some situation this morning going out with Earl Thomas, so something to monitor here. As of now, they still have Earl Thomas. I'd be shocked if they got rid of him, but people are kind of hinting at that, so it's odd. But that would be a pretty big loss, but it's odd. The whole thing's odd, but as of now, they got him. Secondary's great, best corner duo in football. I'm not too worried about that. But again, I think edge rush, pass rush in general is more important because how long will those secondary players have to cover for? They could get better at the actual edge rush position. They're in their 3-4. Their linebacker unit could get better. They added more pass rush to the actual defensive line, adding guys like Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe. They may take a little bit of a hit stopping the run, actually. They had more of a run-stopping D-line before. With a bunch of nose tackles that felt like across the board, so I think run stopping could take a little bit of a hit, but they can get more pressure. They knew it was tough to get pressure, add pressure from the edge, so they got on the D line, with those guys I mentioned. So it should be a pretty fun defense. I like Don Martindale's scheme quite a bit. A key thing for his scheme is blitzing. He is probably the best blitz coordinator in football, so we'll see how he uses a guy maybe like Patrick Queen like that. We'll see if they're okay in that department here. It seemed like they took a hit in that way from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think one of the best blitzing defenses in NFL history. So we'll see. We'll see how they adjust there, but a very good and this kind of shows how many really good defenses there are, with the Ravens being at number 8. 7, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers a dominant defense last year. Probably around number 5, 6, so they're probably in the same range this year here. They'll get the pass rush. I think Key is staying healthy. Stephon Tuitt, I think, is very good, but these minor injuries always pop up. We know what we're going to get from Hayward. Yeah, he's not really getting any better, but we know we're going to get there. TJ Watt, we know we're going to get. The question in Minkah Fitzpatrick, love me some Minkah Fitzpatrick back there at the safety position. He'll be a playmaker. The question is those guys that, what are we going to give? Bud Dupree kind of came out of nowhere last year. Before that, a little underwhelming, but solid. What are we going to get from Bud Dupree? We're going to get a repeat of last year, and then same thing goes for Joe Hayden. We've seen him kind of drop off, but then kind of go back up last year. Steven Nelson was kind of known as a bad corner, but played very good last year. What are we going to get from him? Will Terrell Edmonds take that next step? So a very, very good defense. Just compared to the top 6, maybe, some of those guys that aren't guarantees. The Steelers fans are probably saying guaranteed, but the rest of us, we're not guaranteed to know what to get from some of those guys, but we know that they'll stop the run. Even though they lost Hargrave, then they'll be okay, and they'll get some pressure, and that'll help out the secondary there. Number 6 is going to be the Washington football team here. This defensive front is going to be fun. The rotation is ridiculous. They got an unlimited amount of guys here. Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, Montez Sweat. I don't care which ones they start. They're in good business. Keep the rotation going. They can get unique with it. Some teams do that, use all three at the same time. Interior, Jonathan Allen will, remember Arik Armstead last year with the 49ers, how he kind of broke out in a specific way where he can move around a bit on the defensive line? Is he better at getting after the quarterback? Is he better stopping the run? I think that could be Jonathan Allen this year. So watch out for that. Daron Payne is one of the better nose tackles in football. Matt Ioannidis gets interior pressure. Things we don't forget, that people forget, Reuben Foster, we might see him this year. That is a stud inside linebacker there. And they have Bostic, Cole Holcomb. I like that pick a lot last year. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker. Secondary, kind of led by Landon Collins, but Landon Collins will come up in the box. That front, those guys in the box in close to the line, on the line, it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary. Secondary, you could get better in some of those spots, but I like the pieces they have. It kind of fits. It's guys that will be sticky in coverage early, and that's good because their front will take care of business. Their front will make it a lot easier on their secondary. So, and led by Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, this is going to be fun this year for the Washington team here. But it's mainly because of that front. 5, I went with the Bears. So we're really starting to get to, a team that I actually consider for 1. So we see how close the top 5, 6, even 7, 8, all back to the Ravens are. The Bears took a hit losing Eddie Goldman. I think that affects their run game a lot. That's their nose tackle. He's not really going to wow anybody when you watch the games live, but he's going to stop the run. He's going to do his job there, and it's going to help Akeem Hicks along their defensive line out a lot. But now Akeem Hicks kind of has to carry the load, and we've seen the injuries from him last year, so he needs to stay healthy. 1. You look at the linebacker group, something that's definitely putting them in consideration for number 1, because that linebacker group in their 3-4 is fantastic. The edge rushers, Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn. The questions of how will Robert Quinn be back in the 3-4? He's only really succeeded in the 4-3. It's a question that everyone has. I'm not too worried because he's playing with Khalil Mack, guys like that. Roquan, Dane Trevathan on the inside. I'm not worried about that linebacker. It's very good. It's what puts them in consideration for 1. Secondary, I'm not really sure. The secondary took a hit last year, and I think it could be similar this year. I like the Jalen Johnson pick. Maybe you can't expect too much from him right away. Eddie Jackson leads the way with the group. And they have Kyle Fuller, who's pretty solid, a playmaker, really good at attacking the ball. But Eddie Jackson, it seems like since Amos left, he has a tougher task back there. He has so much responsibility. What I really want him to be is a free safety just in the back end, kind of just reading the quarterback, because that's what he's best at. And that was a big reason why the Bears are the top defense 2 years ago. So they add Gibson over Clinton Dix. Clinton Dix was I thought he was kind of bad last year with the Bears. I just don't think it was the right fit. But is Gibson going to be any different back there, they're pretty thin on corners, but they'll be okay with their starters. I think Jalen Johnson's a good second starting corner for them. So it's kind of carried a bit by that 4 linebacker unit with Akeem Hicks, who needs to stay healthy, but a very good defense, and will be top tier here. 4, I went with the LA Chargers. A big fan of Gus Bradley's defense. They have Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa on the edge. Melvin Ingram, not going to get crazy production, but he'll move around a bit. The game plan will be based on him. He'll create for his teammates there for Joey Bosa. We've seen him miss some games last year. That kind of affected the rest of the defense, so he needs to stay on the field. I'm not too worried about it. Interior can be, interior's weird. It can be really good. It can be top tier, or it could be pretty underwhelming. Linval Joseph has been one of the better nose tackles in football for some time, but that's kind of faded away the last few years. But still very good, but he has these minor injuries that pop up, tries to play through them. Are these going to continue to pop up? Jerry Tillery, who I like his upside, was a little underwhelming last year. It's kind of riding on, can Linval Joseph stay healthy? Can Tillery take that next step? Because you see that either way, they can be very strong, or it can be a pretty messy situation in the interior. Linebackers, they're not really good at linebacker on paper, but I think they can be pretty sneaky good. Drew Tranquill I like a lot. They add Kenneth Murray. They'll get unique. I hope they do. I think Gus Bradley will. They'll get unique with creative with Kenneth Murray, like Oklahoma did. Yeah, he's an inside linebacker. In this defense, could play outside, but at times he rushed the passer for Oklahoma off the edge, and he was really good. Like, I think he can be an edge rusher in the NFL. He's probably better off an off-the-ball linebacker, where he will be, but he's actually a very good pass rusher, so that's where they need to get creative. Secondary is looking really good. Derwin James needs to stay healthy. I think they were just playing it safe last year. I think he will, and that's the key. That guy is an absolute stud, but they have Hayward. They have Chris Harris to go along with it. Maybe a guy like Nasir Adderley can step up. They have Desmond King as well. So it's a pretty complete defense here, and that's why they're top 5. I like the coordinator as well. The question is the interior. How will the interior be? It could be very good. It can be on the lower side. So something to watch for, but still top 5. Number 3, I got the San Francisco 49ers, probably the best defense in football last year. They lose DeForest Buckner, but they gain Javon Kinlaw. I don't think it'll be a difference. I don't think it'll be a crazy difference like people think. Not huge difference. Nick Bosa was that dominant in his rookie year, so what's he going to bring this year? Health was a little bit of a concern for him pre-draft process, so I'm confident, but just something that could change things for anybody when a guy like that gets hurt. But Dee Ford, I think Dee Ford's really underrated. It's a good edge rusher that can play D end or step off the ball. See him drop in coverage almost in the middle of the field. Ark Armstead was big time last year. Key piece to their defense, can rush the edge or play inside. That's one of those unique players across the NFL. The linebacker unit looks great. I think health is with Quan Alexander mainly there, but they have Fred Warner, they have Dre Greenlaw. Secondary, pretty solid. Maybe one of those secondaries that played a little better than they actually are on paper because of their front, but it's a good secondary, and that front should play at that same level. So the Niners, and well coached as well. They make the top 3 here, but I got a little bit of changes here for the top 2. I got the Denver Broncos. That edge rush is going to be fun. Hopefully Bradley Chubb stays healthy. I'm confident. I think they're kind of playing it safe with the young stud there. Him and Von Miller, what a duo that is. And then their defensive line, the rotation on the defense, the depth is ridiculous. But leading the way, Jarrell Casey, Shelby Harris, some studs up there for that defensive front there. But they got guys like Purcell, Walker, Jones, Agim they drafted I like a lot. They got guys that can rotate in different situations, stop the run, get after the quarterback. And I think priority 1 for that defense line is stop the run, because they know they're going to get pressure with those edge rushers, that edge rush duo if they're healthy. A.J. Johnson really stood out last year. I like him a lot. In the inside, maybe the other inside, Todd Davis has the injury pop up, so maybe the other inside is kind of the question. Secondary, I think, will be improved. I think A.J. Bouye improves this year with this Vic Fangio defense, with that pressure in front of him. Justin Simmons, one of the better free safety football. They have Kareem Jackson. They're going to need another corner to step up, but the front 7 is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're going to stop the run at an elite level. They're going to get pressure at an elite level. And because of the D-line for the run game, because of the edge rush for the pass rush game, and combine those groups, it's ridiculous. And leading the way is one of the best defensive minds in football in Vic Fangio, and they have the playmaker on the back end with Justin Simmons. I like this defense a lot if it stays healthy. But number 1, I got the Buffalo Bills taking number 1 this year, and we've ranked everything separate, and we've seen them kind of maybe not top tier, not number 1 in the edge rush department. And I've said I wish they can get a little better at the edge rush department. And I do think that's the most important thing in football is getting pressure. So you may ask, how do you have them at 1? First off, they have good players back, on the edge. They got guys that can play. They got a rotation. But I love their interior pressure. I don't really care where the pressure comes from. If it comes from interior, that's more game-changing because it forces the quarterbacks. It's a quicker trip to the quarterback, forces the quarterbacks out, makes everything very, very easy for the guys on the edge. And if you think about it, Jerry Hughes was actually getting in there on the edge. He just couldn't make the sack. It's going to be easier with this interior. Ed Oliver, Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson's the key. Love me the Quentin Jefferson's game. He actually can move to the end, too. This guy can move. He's played 3 technique. He's played nose tackle. He's played defensive end. So that might be the factor there. So they love the defensive front. Linebacker unit, Tremaine Edmunds, young stud, a guy I was higher on anybody in the draft. This guy's about to break out and make himself be, known to be a top-tier elite inside linebacker and, try to creep up on a guy like Bobby Wagner. I think he's that good. Matt Milano, very solid. And they have some other guys, Klein, Voshon Joseph, that can step up, but they're really key on the two linebackers there. Secondary, I saw Norman popped up injured the other day on the training camp. I don't know if it's major or anything, but I think they upgrade with him. But they have one of the best in Tre'Davious White, and they have one of the better safety duos in football in the back end with Poyer and Hyde. So what I like here is a complete defense. I think who they play factors in too. For me being the number one defense, they're going to play the Jets twice, the Dolphins twice, the Patriots twice. That definitely helps. But a complete defense. I mean, you have McDermott and Frazier. Some great defensive minds there leading the way as well. They got some young players. I think they have the chemistry as well. Interior pressure will be the key to the Bills' defense, even though their best player might be Tre'Davious White or Tremaine Edmunds, and Edmunds can be involved in that. I feel like they haven't unleashed Edmunds fully yet either because he can do it all. I think they're going to use him more and more. This kid's going to be an absolute stud. He will be the best middle linebacker in football one day soon. So they got studs, they got balance, they got coaching, they got chemistry, they got an easier offensive schedule. Maybe I wouldn't call it really easy, but because they're non-divisional, pretty tough. But all of that makes me put the Bills at number one. But it's tough. You can argue, like I said, I think about 8 teams here. You can argue. They're all different. So we'll see what happens this season. I cannot wait for it. Hopefully you can join us for our full coverage. Subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, smash the like button if you enjoyed. We really appreciate that. You're going to want to follow that Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, I'd recommend that you make one because we're always tweeting during live games. Everyone gets kind of a sneak peek what I talk about in videos, upcoming. So I recommend following that. Would really appreciate it as well. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.